The massive crystal towers of Zentara Prime stretched high into the purple sky. Inside the largest tower, beings from across the galaxy gathered in a great hall. The Galactic Council was meeting again, and today they had something new to discuss. Ambassador Kethfer stood at the center of the hall. His green scales caught the light as he moved. He was tall and proud, like all members of the hegemony race. Around him sat hundreds of other aliens. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living crystal. A few were just clouds of gas and metal suits. Fellow council members, Kethfer began, his voice loud and clear. We have a new problem. A young species has just learned how to travel faster than light. They call themselves humans. A low murmur went through the hall. New species were always a concern for the council. They had rules about how the galaxy should work. New species often cause trouble. These humans come from a small blue planet. Kethfer continued. They call it Earth. It orbits a yellow star in the outer rim of the galaxy. They have only recently left their home system. One of the crystal beings spoke up. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. What do we know about their technology? Kethfer smiled, showing his sharp teeth. That is the best part. Their technology is very basic. We have been watching them for months. Their ships are made of simple metal and ceramic. They use chemical rockets and basic fusion drives. Very primitive. The insect-like Zephyrians clicked. Their mandibles in amusement. How primitive. Asked their speaker. They still use computers made of silicon. Kethfer replied. Their fastest ships take weeks to travel between planets in their own system. They have no energy shields, no gravity control, no quantum weapons. The assembled aliens began to laugh. The sound was strange, with clicks, whistles, and electronic tones mixing together. To them, humans sounded like children playing with toys. Have they made any demands? Asked a representative from the Vorthic Empire. The Vorthic were known for their military might. They had conquered dozens of worlds. No demands, Kethfer said. They seemed focused on exploration and research. Our spy. Drones have watched them for months. They mine asteroids for resources. They build simple research stations. They send messages to each other using basic radio waves. The Vorthic leader made a sound like grinding metal. They sound harmless. Why are we even discussing them? Because, Kethfer said, they are in a strategic location. Their system sits on several important trade routes. If we do not act now, they might become a problem later. The council chamber filled with discussion. Different species spoke in their own languages. Translators worked quickly to convert everything to common speech. Meanwhile, far away in the Sol system, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The New Horizons was humanity's newest exploration vessel. It was long and sleek, with solar panels and communication arrays covering its hull. Captain, called Navigator Lisa Chun from her station. We're approaching the asteroid field. Should I begin the scanning sequence? Jake nodded. Go ahead, Lisa. Let's see what we can find out there. The New Horizons moved slowly through space. Its engines glowed blue as they pushed the ship forward. To Jake and his crew, this was an exciting mission. They were exploring parts of their solar system that no human had ever seen before. Engineer Paul Rodriguez checked his instruments. All systems are running smooth, Captain. The mining equipment is ready to deploy. Good work, Paul, Jake replied. He looked out at the stars through the main window. Earth was just a small blue dot in the distance. Amy, any word from home? Communications Officer Amy Walsh looked up from her console. Regular check-in from Mission Control, sir. They want daily reports on our progress. Jake smiled. Tell them we're right on schedule. This asteroid field should have plenty of rare metals for the new space stations. What Jake and his crew did not know was that alien eyes were watching. Them, High above the solar system, invisible spy drones recorded everything. The aliens watched as the New Horizons used its simple tools to break apart asteroids. They saw the basic computer systems that guided the ship. They noted the chemical thrusters that moved it through space. Back on Zentara Prime, the Galactic Council was reaching a decision. The debate had gone on for hours. Finally, Kethver called for silence. "We have heard all opinions," he announced. "The humans are weak. Their technology is centuries behind ours. But they are in a location that could cause problems for Galactic trade." The crystal being spoke again. "What do you suggest we do?" "Simple," Kethver replied. "We make contact. We show them the power of the Galactic Council. We offer them protection in exchange for control of their system. If they refuse—" He did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the hall knew. What happened to species that refused the Council's protection? The Vorthic representative stood up. "The hegemony fleet can handle this. 12 dreadnoughts should be more than enough to convince these humans to cooperate." "Agreed," said Kethver. "Admiral Vextan will lead the fleet. A simple show of force should be sufficient. These humans will see our mighty ships and understand that resistance is hopeless." The Council voted. The decision was unanimous. The human species would be contacted and offered a choice: join the Galactic Council as a junior member, or face the consequences. As the meeting ended, the aliens felt confident. They had dealt with hundreds of primitive species before. The humans would be no different. Their basic technology and simple ships posed no threat to the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. The spy drones continued their watch over the Sol system. They recorded more human ships going about their daily business. Mining vessels, research craft, and communication satellites moved in predictable patterns. Everything the aliens saw confirmed their belief that humans were a weak, primitive species. None of the aliens thought to look deeper. They did not wonder why the humans had achieved faster-than-light travel so quickly. They did not question why a species with such primitive technology was already building structures throughout their solar system. They saw only what they expected to see. In the depths of space, Admiral Vextan prepared his fleet for departure. 12 massive warships, each 5 kilometers long, made ready for the journey to the human system. Their crews were confident. They had intimidated dozens of species before. The humans would be easy. The galaxy was about to learn that appearances could be very deceiving. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council made their decision. The hegemony fleet had traveled across the galaxy, moving through hyperspace at speeds that would amaze the humans. Now they were ready to make their presence known. Admiral Vextan stood in the command center of his flagship. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. The bridge was dark, lit only by the glow of alien instruments. Through the main viewing screen, he could see the human solar system spread out before them. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced his second-in-command. "Excellent," Vextan replied. His voice was deep and commanding. "Begin the emergence sequence. Let these humans see what real power looks like." Space near Jupiter suddenly erupted in flashes of light. One by one, 12 massive alien warships dropped out of hyperspace. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering. Their hulls were dark metal covered in glowing symbols. Weapon ports dotted their surfaces like the eyes of ancient monsters. The ships moved into formation, creating a perfect line facing the inner solar system. Their size was overwhelming. Each dreadnought was longer than the tallest human building. Their mass was greater than most human cities. Captain Jake Morrison was eating lunch when the alarm started ringing. He dropped his sandwich and ran to the bridge of the New Horizons. His crew was already at their stations, their faces showing shock and excitement. "Report," Jake ordered as he took his command chair. "Captain, we have multiple contacts near Jupiter," Lisa Chun said. her voice shaking slightly. 12 objects, each measuring approximately 5 kilometers in length. They appeared out of nowhere. Jake felt his heart racing. Are they ships? Yes, sir, Paul Rodriguez confirmed from his engineering station. They're definitely artificial. The power readings are unlike anything in our databases. Amy Walsh looked up from her communication console. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's on multiple frequencies. Put it through, Jake ordered. The main screen flickered, then showed the face of Admiral Vextan. The alien's scaled features and glowing eyes made several crew members step back in surprise. Attention, primitive humans. Vextan's voice boomed through the ship's speakers. I am Admiral Vextan of the Hegemony Fleet. You will listen carefully to what I have to say. Jake stood up straight. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizons. We welcome contact with your people. Vextan's eyes narrowed. You do not speak unless given permission. Your species has entered the galactic community without proper authorization. This cannot be allowed to continue. I don't understand, Jake replied. We've been exploring our own solar system. We haven't interfered with anyone. Silence, Vextan roared. Your species will submit to Galactic Council authority. You will be relocated to a world more suitable for primitive life forms. Your system will be placed under proper management. The transmission cut off, leaving Jake and his crew in stunned silence. Amy's console began beeping frantically. Captain, she said, we're receiving priority communications from Earth. It looks like they detected the alien ships too. On Earth, emergency meetings were happening in government buildings around the world. President Kate Sullivan sat in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by her top advisors. The main screen showed the alien fleet holding position near Jupiter. How long until they reach Earth? President Sullivan asked. Defense Secretary Ryan Carter checked his tablet. At their current position, they could be here in days if they wanted to. But they're not moving. They're waiting for something, said Dr. Helen Foster, the NASA director. This Admiral Vextan gave us some kind of ultimatum. He wants us to submit to their authority. What are our options? The president asked. Limited, Carter admitted. Our space-based defenses are designed for asteroids and debris, not alien warships. Those ships out there are bigger than anything we've ever built. Dr. Foster studied the images of the alien fleet. There's something strange about their positioning. They're not in an attack formation. This looks more like an intimidation tactic. Maybe they don't want to fight, suggested General Patricia Hayes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Maybe they think we'll surrender without a battle. President Sullivan made her decision. Send a message to this Admiral Vextan. Tell him we need time to consider his demands. Buy us as much time as possible. The message was sent, but Vextan's response was swift and harsh. You have 48 hours to decide. Submit to Council authority or face the consequences. The next day brought more tension. The alien fleet remained motionless near Jupiter, but their presence cast a shadow over the entire solar system. Human ships and stations throughout the system went to high alert. Captain Morrison received new orders to evacuate the outer system. As the New Horizons prepared to leave, he watched the alien ships through his telescope. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, clearly built by a civilization far more advanced than humanity. Captain, Paul Rodriguez said quietly, do you think they'll really attack us? Jake didn't have an answer. The aliens had technology that seemed like magic compared to human science. Their ships had appeared from nowhere and could probably destroy Earth's entire space fleet without effort. What Jake didn't know was that the aliens were making a critical mistake. They had been watching human ships for months, but they had only seen civilian vessels. The New Horizons and ships like it were exploration and research craft, not military vessels. Admiral Vextan studied the reports from his spy drones. Human. Ships were still moving throughout the solar system, but they seemed to be following evacuation patterns. Some vessels were heading toward the outer planets, while others moved closer to Earth. They're preparing for something, his tactical officer reported. Our sensors detect increased communication traffic between their ships and ground stations. Let them prepare, Vextan said with confidence. Their primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Our shields can withstand their most powerful nuclear weapons. The 48-hour deadline was approaching. On Earth, President Sullivan called an emergency session of the United Nations. Leaders from around the world participated in the video conference. We've studied the alien ships, Dr. Foster reported. Their technology is clearly superior to ours. They have some kind of faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and weapons we can't even identify. So we surrender? Asked the president of France. Not necessarily, General Hayes interjected. We have options they don't know about. President Sullivan nodded. Dr. Foster, explain what you told me earlier. The aliens have been watching us for months, Dr. Foster began. But they've only seen our civilian infrastructure. Our exploration ships, research stations, and communication satellites. They think that's all we have. Are you saying they don't know about our actual defenses? Asked the Prime Minister of Britain. Exactly, Dr. Foster replied. They're about to learn that the ships they've been watching aren't our military vessels. They're just our civilian fleet. As the deadline approached, Admiral Vextan grew impatient. The humans were taking too long to respond. In his experience, primitive species usually surrendered immediately when faced with superior firepower. Admiral, his communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the human planet. Put it through, Vextan ordered. President. Sullivan's face appeared on the screen. Admiral Vextan, we have considered your demands. We cannot accept your terms. Vextan's eyes flashed with anger. Then you have chosen destruction. Your species will learn the price of defying the Galactic Council. Admiral, the President said calmly, you should know that the ships you've been watching for the past months aren't our military vessels. They're our civilian fleet. Vextan laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Do you expect me to believe that primitives like you have hidden warships? Your best technology is centuries behind ours. You're about to find out, President Sullivan replied before ending the transmission. Admiral, Vextan ordered his fleet to advance toward Earth. The 12 dreadnoughts began moving, their massive engines glowing with alien fire. The time for talking was over. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. For the first time in their long history, the hegemony fleet was about to face an enemy that had been preparing for exactly this moment. The moment President Sullivan ended the transmission, everything changed. Across the solar system, what the aliens had thought were simple mining stations and research facilities began to transform. Admiral Vextan watched his tactical display. As his fleet advanced toward Earth, his confidence remained high. The human response had been typical of primitive species, threats and bluster to hide their weakness. Admiral, his sensor officer called out, we're detecting unusual energy. Signatures from the asteroid belt. Probably some desperate attempt to modify their mining equipment into weapons, Vextan replied dismissively. Continue the advance. But what was happening in the asteroid belt was far from desperate. The mining station that had been quietly operating there for months suddenly revealed its true nature. Massive metal panels slid away from its surface, exposing the barrel of a railgun that stretched for several kilometers. Similar transformations were happening throughout the solar system. Research stations near Saturn sprouted weapon arrays. Communication satellites revealed themselves as sensor platforms. The simple infrastructure the aliens had been watching was anything but simple. Captain, Jake Morrison received the evacuation order just as the changes began. From the bridge of the New Horizons, he watched in amazement as the solar system came alive with new contacts on his sensors. "Captain," Lisa Chun said, her voice filled with wonder, "we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. It's like the whole place is waking up." Before Jake could respond, a new voice came through their communication system. "This is Commander Sarah Bradley of the Earth Defense Ship Resolute. All civilian vessels are ordered to proceed to safe zones immediately." Jake had never heard of the Resolute, but his sensors were now showing a contact that made his jaw drop. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the New Horizons. Its hull was sleek and black, covered in what looked like advanced armor plating. Where did that come from? Paul Rodriguez whispered. The answer came from Amy Walsh at the communications station. "Sir, I'm receiving data from Earth Command. That ship was hidden in the shadow of Ceres. It's been there for months, powered down and invisible to normal sensors." As the New Horizons moved toward the designated safe zone, Jake watched more ships appear on his display. The Resolute was joined by the Defiant, the Thunderbolt, and the Nemesis. Each vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering, far more advanced than anything the civilians had seen. Admiral Vexton's confidence began to waver as his sensors detected the new human vessels. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. "Scanning." "Now, sir," his sensor officer replied. "Initial count shows at least 20 major vessels, plus numerous smaller craft and defensive platforms." 20? Vexton snarled. "Our intelligence reported only a handful of primitive exploration ships." "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel." Commander Sarah Bradley's face appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 40s, with short gray hair and steady blue eyes. Her uniform was black with silver insignia that the aliens didn't recognize. "Hegemony Fleet," she said in a calm, professional tone. "This is Commander Bradley of the Earth Defense Force. You have violated our territorial space and attacked our civilian installations. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from this system." Vexton's eyes blazed with fury. "You dare threaten us? Your entire species is nothing compared to the might of the hegemony." "Admiral," Bradley replied, "you've been watching our civilian vessels for months and mistook them for our military capability. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was assuming we were defenseless." The transmission ended, leaving Vexton staring at the screen in disbelief. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to analyze the new human ships. The results were disturbing. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "these human vessels are emitting energy signatures we don't recognize. Their power output is enormous, far beyond what their technology should allow." "Impossible," Vexton muttered. "They're primitives. Their best ships use chemical rockets." "Sir," the sensor officer added, "we're also detecting defensive platforms throughout the system. They appear to be integrated into the asteroid belt and the outer planet rings." The truth was becoming clear to Admiral Vexton, though he refused to accept it. The humans had been hiding their true capabilities. What the hegemony had observed as a primitive civilization was actually just the civilian side of a much more advanced species. Dr. Helen Foster watched the unfolding situation from the command center deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Around her, technicians monitored the defense grid that had been years in the making. "Status report," she requested. "All defensive platforms are online," reported Colonel Marcus Thompson, the military liaison. "The fleet is in position, and the enemy vessels are maintaining their current course." "Good," Dr. Foster replied. "Let's see if they're smart enough to withdraw." The human defensive strategy had been developed based on one simple assumption. Eventually, someone would come to Earth with hostile intentions. The visible civilian infrastructure was designed to appear primitive, while the real defenses remained hidden. Every mining station in the asteroid belt was actually a weapons platform. Every research facility near the outer planets was a sensor array and missile battery. The communication satellites formed a network that could coordinate defenses across the entire solar system. Most importantly, the Earth Defense Force ships were built using technology that the aliens couldn't detect or understand. While human civilian vessels used conventional fusion drives and basic computers, the military ships employed principles that pushed the boundaries of physics. Commander Bradley stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the alien fleet approach. Her ship was one of 12 identical vessels, each carrying weapons and defensive systems that had never been tested in actual combat. Today would be their first real trial. Commander, her tactical officer reported, the alien fleet is not changing. Course, they'll be in weapons range in 15 minutes. Very well, Bradley replied. Signal the fleet. Prepare for engagement, but remember the rules of engagement. We disable. We don't destroy unless absolutely necessary. The rules of engagement were specific. Earth wanted to send a message to the galaxy, but they didn't want to be seen as monsters. The goal was to demonstrate overwhelming superiority while minimizing casualties. Admiral Vexton made his decision. All ships, prepare for combat. These humans need to learn their place in the galaxy. The hegemony fleet spread into attack formation. Their massive weapons began charging, energy building up in systems that could devastate planets. The aliens had conquered dozens of worlds with these ships. They saw no reason why Earth should be any different. Admiral, his communications officer, announced, "The humans are transmitting again." Commander Bradley's face reappeared on the screen. Admiral Vexton, this is your final warning. Withdraw your fleet immediately, or face the consequences. The only consequences will be for your pathetic species. Vexton replied, "You cannot threaten the hegemony with your primitive technology." Bradley's expression didn't change. Admiral, you still don't understand. The ships you've been watching for months, the ones you think represent our military capability, those are civilian vessels. What you're facing now is just our system defense fleet. What are you saying? Vexton demanded. I'm saying that if you think these ships are impressive, you should know that these aren't even our warships. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Vexton staring at the screen in growing horror. If these massive, advanced human vessels weren't their warships, what were their actual military vessels like? He was about to find out. The battle was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to witness the true power of humanity. The species that had been dismissed as primitive was about to demonstrate that appearances could be fatally deceiving. In the depths of space, hidden sensors throughout the solar system tracked every movement of the alien fleet. The trap was set, and the humans were ready to spring it. The battle began at exactly 1432 Earth Standard Time. Admiral Vexton, convinced that the humans were bluffing, gave the order to attack. The 12 hegemony dreadnoughts opened fire with weapons that had conquered worlds. Streams of superheated plasma lanced across space toward the human fleet. Energy beams capable of melting mountains struck the Earth Defense Force ships. The aliens expected to see the human vessels explode in brilliant flashes of light. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships absorbed the energy attacks, like sponges soaking up water. Their hulls didn't even glow from the heat. The weapons that should have destroyed them seemed to make them stronger. What in the void is happening? Admiral Vexton shouted at his tactical officer. Sir, our weapons are having no effect. The human ships are somehow redirecting our energy attacks into their own power systems. Commander Sarah Bradley smiled grimly as she watched her ship's power levels climb. The Resolute's energy absorption systems were working perfectly. Every shot from the alien fleet was being converted into power for her own weapons. All ships, she transmitted to the Earth Defense. Force Fleet, return fire. Demonstrate proper targeting protocols. The human response was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Instead of crude energy beams or projectile weapons, the Earth ships fired weapons that seemed to bend space itself. Gravitational distortions rippled through the void, striking the hegemony vessels with surgical precision. The first alien ship to be hit was the dreadnought Domination. The human weapon didn't punch through its armor or overwhelm its shields. Instead, it simply shut down every system on the ship. Weapons offline, shields offline, propulsion offline. Only life support remained functional. Impossible, Admiral. Vextan breathed. How are they doing this? His question was answered by the systematic destruction of his fleet's combat capability. One by one, the hegemony dreadnoughts fell silent as human weapons disabled them with frightening efficiency. The aliens' mighty warships became helpless. Metal hulks floating in space. The entire engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes. 17 minutes to neutralize a fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds. The humans had demonstrated a level of technological superiority that the galaxy had never seen. Captain Jake Morrison watched the battle from the safety of the civilian evacuation zone. His crew stood in stunned silence as they witnessed the complete defeat of the alien fleet. How is this possible? Lisa Chun whispered. Those human ships are using technology that shouldn't exist. Look at the way they move, Paul Rodriguez added. They're not just flying through space. They're manipulating space itself. The New Horizon sensors were barely able to track the human defense ships as they danced around the alien fleet. The Earth vessels moved like they were ignoring the laws of physics, accelerating and turning in ways that should have been impossible. Admiral Vextan's flagship was the last to fall. As his ship's systems failed around him, he received a communication from an unexpected source. Hegemony Fleet, this is Earth Defense Command. The voice belonged to Colonel Marcus Thompson, speaking from his command post, hidden within what the aliens had thought was a simple communication relay. Your fleet has been neutralized, Thompson continued. All weapons and propulsion systems have been disabled. Life support remains functional. You will be given the opportunity to return to your territory with a message for the Galactic Council. This is impossible, Vextan replied, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. Your species is primitive. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Admiral, Thompson said calmly, you've been watching our civilian vessels for months and assumed they represented our military capability. Those exploration ships, mining stations, and research facilities you observed? They're exactly what they appeared to be, civilian infrastructure. Then what are these vessels that defeated us? These are our system defense ships. They're designed to protect our home system from exactly the kind of threat you represent. Admiral Vextan felt a cold fear creeping through his body. System. Defense ships? That's correct, Admiral. These aren't even our warships. The silence that followed was deafening. Admiral Vextan's mind struggled to process what he was hearing. If these incredibly advanced vessels were just system defense ships, what were humanity's actual military vessels like? The answer came sooner than he expected. Space near Earth suddenly rippled, and something emerged that made even the human defense fleet look small. The newcomer was a ship that defied every convention of spacecraft design. The vessel was massive, easily twice the size of the largest hegemony dreadnought. Its hull seemed to be made of some material that bent light around it, creating a disturbing visual effect. It didn't move through space so much as it moved space around itself. This is Admiral Rachel Foster of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. Came a new voice over the communication channels. I understand we have visitors. Commander Bradley responded immediately. Admiral, the situation is under control. The hostile fleet has been neutralized. Excellent work, Commander. I think our guests deserve a proper demonstration of human capabilities before we send them home." What followed was a display that would be remembered throughout the galaxy for generations. The Indomitable didn't just demonstrate advanced technology. It demonstrated mastery over the fundamental forces of the universe. The massive ship reached out with invisible fields and began repairing the damage to the hegemony fleet. Not slowly, not gradually, but instantly. Systems that had been completely disabled suddenly came back online. Weapons that had been fused into useless metal reformed themselves into working condition. Admiral Vextan watched in horror as his ship's systems restored themselves. "What are you doing to us?" "We're sending you home," Admiral Foster replied. "But first, you're going to witness something that will help you understand humanity's true capabilities." The Indomitable turned toward the asteroid belt. With a gesture that seemed almost casual, the ship reached out and moved an entire asteroid. Not with tractor beams or gravitational fields, but by manipulating space itself. The asteroid, which massed millions of tons, moved like a pebble in a pond. But that was just the beginning. The ship then demonstrated its ability to manipulate energy on a stellar scale. It drew power directly from the sun, channeling solar energy across millions of kilometers with perfect efficiency. The display was both beautiful and terrifying. "Admiral Vextan," Foster's voice came through the communication system. "You and your fleet are free to go. You will return to the Galactic Council with a message from humanity." "What message?" Vextan asked weakly. "Tell them that Earth desires peaceful relations with all species. We have no interest in conquest or domination. However, we will defend ourselves and our interests with whatever force is necessary." The implications were clear. Humanity possessed technology that could reshape the galaxy, but they chose not to use it aggressively. They preferred peace, but they were prepared for war. "Tell the Council," Admiral Foster continued, "that they have greatly underestimated humanity. The ships they've been watching are our civilian vessels. The ships that defeated your fleet are our system defense craft. What you've just witnessed is one of our command ships." "Command ships?" Vextan repeated numbly. "Yes, Admiral. The Indomitable is designed to coordinate fleet operations and provide support. It's not a warship." The final blow to Admiral Vextan's understanding of reality came with those words. If the Indomitable, with its reality-warping capabilities, was just a command ship, what were humanity's actual warships like? The answer would remain a mystery, but the message was clear. Earth had been preparing for this moment for years. They had developed technology that the galaxy couldn't even comprehend, and they had done it all while appearing to be a primitive, peaceful species. The hegemony fleet began its journey home, carrying with them the knowledge that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity was not the weak, primitive species they had appeared to be. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had achieved technological superiority while maintaining the wisdom to use it defensively. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating humanity was a mistake that could prove fatal. The journey back to Zentara Prime took the hegemony fleet 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence as Admiral Vextan and his crews tried to understand what had happened to them. Their mighty warships, which had conquered dozens of worlds, had been defeated in 17 minutes by a species they had thought was primitive. When the battered fleet finally arrived at the crystal spires of the Galactic Council headquarters, word of their defeat had already spread. The proud hegemony vessels that had left months ago in perfect formation now limped home, their hulls bearing the scars of impossible weapons. Ambassador Kethvar waited at the spaceport, his scaled features showing a mixture of concern and disbelief. The reports from the fleet made no sense. How could humans, with their basic technology, have defeated the hegemony's finest warships? "Admiral," Kethvar said as Vextan stepped off his flagship, Explain what happened in that system. Admiral Vexton looked like a being who had seen his entire understanding of the universe shattered. His once proud bearing was gone, replaced by the shaky movements of someone who had glimpsed something beyond their comprehension. "We were wrong," Vexton said simply. "Everything we thought we knew about the humans was wrong." Within hours, the Galactic Council was in emergency session. The great hall filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all eager to hear the impossible story of humanity's victory over the hegemony. Kethvar stood at the center of the hall, his voice carrying the weight of galactic changing news. "Fellow council members, we have received disturbing reports from our contact with the human species. Admiral Vexton will explain what transpired." The Admiral stepped forward, his voice quiet but clear. "The humans were not what they appeared to be. For months, we watched their ships and stations, believing we understood their capabilities. We were observing their civilian infrastructure and mistaking it for their military strength." A murmur of confusion rippled through the assembled aliens. The Zephyrian representative clicked his mandibles impatiently. "Admiral, you commanded 12 dreadnoughts. How could civilians defeat such a force?" "They weren't civilians who fought us," Vexton replied. "When we attacked, the real military revealed itself. Ships that had been hidden throughout their system. Weapons platforms disguised as mining stations. Defense networks we never detected." The crystal being from the collective chimed in. "Describe their technology." Vexton's hands shook as he remembered. "They didn't fight like any species we've encountered. Their ships absorbed our weapon fire and converted it to power their own systems. They used weapons that disabled our vessels without destroying them. They moved through space as if gravity meant nothing to them." "Impossible," declared the Vorthic representative. "No species has such advanced technology." "I saw it with my own eyes," Vexton insisted. But that wasn't the worst part. "After they defeated our entire fleet in 17 minutes, one of their officers told us something that will haunt me forever." "What did they say?" Kethvar demanded. "They said the ships that defeated us weren't even their warships. They were just system defense vessels." The hall erupted in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting in their native languages. The translators worked frantically to keep up with the flood of words. Fear was spreading through the assembled aliens like a virus. Kethvar called for order, his voice barely audible over the noise. "Silence. Let the Admiral finish his report." When the hall finally quieted, Vexton continued. "They demonstrated their capabilities before sending us home. A single ship, which they called a command vessel, repaired our entire fleet instantly. It moved asteroids like toys. It drew power directly from their star, across millions of kilometers." "A command vessel?" whispered the Zephyrian. "Not a warship?" "Not a warship," Vexton confirmed. "If their command ships can do such things, what must their actual warships be capable of?" Meanwhile, back in the Sol system, humanity was adapting to their new reality. The secret was out. The galaxy now knew that Earth possessed advanced technology, though they still didn't understand how advanced. President Kate Sullivan met with her advisors in the White House Situation Room. The mood was cautious but optimistic. Humanity had successfully defended itself without becoming the aggressor. "What's our next move?" President Sullivan asked. Dr. Helen Foster consulted her tablet. "We've received communication requests from over 30 different alien species. Some want to establish trade relations. Others are asking for defense agreements. And some are probably planning new attacks," added Defense Secretary Ryan Carter. "That's why we maintain our defensive posture," General Patricia Hayes said. "We've shown them we can defend ourselves, but we haven't revealed our full capabilities." The truth was that even Admiral Foster's demonstration had only scratched the surface of human technology. The Indomitable was impressive, but it was far from humanity's most advanced vessel. Earth had been preparing for galactic contact for decades, and their preparations ran deeper than anyone could imagine. Dr. Foster looked at the star maps displayed on the main screen. The interesting thing is that several species are asking to join a defensive alliance with us. They're more afraid of other galactic powers than they are of us. Back on Zentara Prime, the Galactic Council was struggling to adapt to the new reality. The species they had planned to subjugate was now potentially the most powerful force in the galaxy. Ambassador Kethfor addressed the assembly. We must decide how to respond to this situation. The humans have extended an invitation for peaceful diplomatic relations. On their terms, the Vorthic representative growled. They dictate the conditions because they have superior firepower. Exactly as we would have done, Kethfa replied. The difference is that they're offering genuine peace rather than domination. The crystal being pulsed with nervous energy. What if other species align with the humans? What if they share their technology? It was a valid concern. For millennia, the Galactic Council had maintained order through superior technology and military might. If humanity began sharing their advances with other species, the balance of power would shift dramatically. The debate continued for days. Some species wanted to declare war on humanity before they could become more dangerous. Others argued for immediate diplomatic contact. A few suggested that the galaxy should simply leave Earth alone and hope the humans remained peaceful. Decision came when reports arrived of human ships making contact with several independent worlds. These weren't military vessels, or even the system defense craft that had defeated the hegemony. They were clearly diplomatic ships, but their technology was obviously far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding. A proper exploration vessel called the Endeavor was part of the first diplomatic mission to the Tau Ceti system. The alien colonists there had been oppressed by the Galactic Council for generations. Captain, his new communications officer, Lieutenant Kevin Walsh, reported, the colonists are requesting asylum under Earth protection. Jake considered the request carefully. Earth's new foreign policy was simple. They would protect any species that asked for help, but they wouldn't impose their will on anyone. Grant their request, Jake decided. Inform Earth Command that we're extending protection to the Tau Ceti colonies. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Oppressed species were learning that humanity offered an alternative to council. Rule, not domination, but genuine protection and alliance. The final blow to the old galactic order came when Admiral Rachel Foster arrived at Zentara Prime, aboard the Indomitable. She didn't come with a fleet or issue ultimatums. She simply requested permission to address the Galactic Council, standing in the Great Hall, where humans had been dismissed as primitives just months before. Admiral Foster delivered a speech that would reshape galactic civilization. Members of the Galactic Council, she began, humanity comes before you not as conquerors, but as neighbors. We have no desire to rule the galaxy or impose our will on other species. Then what do you want? Kethfor asked. Peace, Foster replied simply. Trade, cultural exchange, the same things most species want. But we also want an end to the oppression of weaker civilizations. The Vorthic representative stood angrily. You dare lecture us on governance? I'm not lecturing anyone, Foster said calmly. I'm offering an alternative. Species that wish to remain under council authority are free to do so. But those that choose independence will have Earth's protection. And if we refuse to accept this new arrangement? The Vorthic demanded. Admiral Foster's expression didn't change, but her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then, you'll discover what our actual warships are capable of. The silence that followed was deafening. Every being in the hall understood the implications. Humanity had revealed only a fraction of their capabilities, Yet they had already demonstrated power beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. The old order was ending. The Galactic Council's rule through force was being replaced by something new. A system where species could choose their own path, protected by the benevolent strength of humanity. Ambassador Kethvar made the announcement that formalized the new reality. The Galactic Council recognizes the sovereignty of Earth and its allied systems. We welcome humanity to the galactic community as an equal partner. As the formal serum